How's it going there, guys? This is going to be a part 2, the review, if you will, of the entries for my Triangulum Troubles challenge, which I posted recently as part of a processing tutorial and data share, where I asked you guys if you would like to post your images on Instagram and have them viewed, rated, and pointers given, if there are any to be given, by me, and that is what this video is. So for those of you who took part and participated, all your images are here, tagged on Instagram. For anybody who didn't get through, I'm sorry. I'll hopefully catch you in the next challenge. Upcoming challenges will be on the way, of course. Open to suggestions for that one as to what you might like to see. But yeah, let's dive into this. There's quite a lot of images to go through. As we do, I'll of course just be giving my feedback on the image, good points, bad points, things I like, etc. And then we'll move on and get through these, hopefully within about an hour. So you may wish to get yourself a nice warm drink and sit down and see what you might be able to take away from this, and maybe apply to your own images too. If you see something that you agree with or don't agree with me, then that'd be awesome to let me know as well. What's working for you, what isn't. So kicking things off from Jeff Van, right here we can see Triangulum Galaxy Challenge provided by Luke. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Jeff, for taking part, mate. Overall, a great image to kick us off with, I would say. So in terms of things that I like about this image, I like the amount of saturation applied, particularly to the mid sections of these spiral arms on this galaxy. It's brought out the nebulous regions, so these reflection nebula regions, these clusters within the arms of the galaxies, all coming out beautifully, well rendered in detail, and also this nebulosity in particular, this it's a really notable feature, of course, in this galaxy. We're going to see it pop up again and again throughout these images, but it came out like a shining jewel on this, so well done there. As to pointers, as to what I might change if this was my edit, I think your black point is pretty darn good. Maybe there's a small amount of saturation creeping in there, but it's nothing egregious. So if you wished, you could maybe mask out the galaxy, invert that mask, and just drop the saturation very slightly on the background, but that's a very minor point. But the main thing that I would probably change is I'd try to peel back the brightness, particularly just in the core very slightly, and maybe add a touch more saturation to that, because I think you can see there's a difference in saturation levels between the mid sections of these arms and the core of the galaxy, where there should be potentially a lot of colors going on in there. But overall, like I say, this is being very nitpicky. I think you've made a tremendous effort at this. I like it. I don't think anything's too overdone. So well done, Jeff. Thank you for taking part, and I'd love to see you in a future challenge too. You can also see an annotated version right there as well, pointing out these features that we talked about as well, these nebulous features. Lovely to see that. Thank you. Moving on to Jorik B. Boss. I hope I've got your name correct there, my friend. Sorry if I've got it wrong, Jorik. But yeah, the Triangulum Galaxy 200mm. So he's using his own data for this. Bresson Messier F3. So he's using the Star Arizona Nexus reducer. I've heard good things about those. A 294 MC Pro, 135 2-minute subs. Total integration time 11 hours and 15 minutes. So perhaps he's added some more data to that, because that's not 11 hours and 15 minutes. That's just shy of 5 hours, is that right? 4.5 hours, in terms of how long that actually is. But regardless, let's judge the image for what it is. Black point, pretty much spot on, I would say. Well done, especially in an image like this. It's sometimes really hard to decide on a black point, but I think with it framed how it is, you've got a lot of context then to go with and set your black point accurately. So I think you've done a good job on that one. I particularly like the crop. I will say that highlights some of the details that you've captured within this shot. As to things I would change, for me, let's think now. So the things I really like, let's say if we just go back and finish that out, I do like your usage of the black point right there, and the overall, sheen in the background. It looks nice. I like the amount of detail that you've pulled out of this thing. So whatever you've used in terms of sharpening or deconvolution methods, that's working for you, and I really like the appearance of that. Noise has been dealt with very well, as also perhaps the core could stand a touch more saturation, and overall the redder regions, so these rifts of dusty stuff coming up through the middle of here could be slightly skewed towards more black red, if you will, or dark brown red. And that comes up really nice. I personally like that in an image. Maybe you don't. So, you know, take that on board if you wish. But also, I understand if you throw that recommendation straight out the window, it won't work for everybody. But yeah, that's what I would probably change. Altering the red balance in some regions of this image. So such as this nebula, I imagine, with the amount of data that you've captured at the speed you've captured it, I think there's probably more in there, more buried in those regions, perhaps more craggly bits of nebulosity to be brought out. But overall, nice shot. Astro Asarirak, I think that's how you say your name. I'm so sorry if I get this wrong, by the way. Please do correct me in the comments. Greetings and salutations, Luke, and those that wander through the night and find their way here. I like that. I ended up processing this about 5 times, and just as you said, I got some things different each time. That's absolutely fantastic for you noting that and letting me know. I can see you've got a few revisions down here at the bottom, and I will try to get through all of those, of course. But yeah, it's lovely to see that you've seen differences in your revisions. That means you're still progressing and finding what you'd like from the data. I think if you ever get to the point where you process an image 5 times and you end up with the same result 5 times, you've either hit a stopping point, you know what I mean, a sticking point in your processing journey, or you may be at the point where you're getting the most out of the data and getting it exactly as you want it. I'm not there yet. I think if I process an image 5 times, I get 5 slightly different images. Do you know what I mean? So that's lovely to see, and thank you for including that detail. My processing steps were all in PixInsight, so that's really lovely to see. He's made use of BlurX, NoiseX, Image Solver, SPCC, Graxpert. Excellent stuff. Statistical stretch, that's something I've not tried myself. HD stretch linked, yes. So much masking and curves. Tried using specific color masks on the latest to pull out the blues and some darker, some lighter reds. Okay, let some saturation in the car and put them back together. I have so much to learn and appreciate the pointers. Finally, congrats on your newborn and best of luck on sleep for all you. Oh, thank you so much for that, mate. That's absolutely lovely to hear. I really appreciate the thoughtful comment that you've left with that. So let's take a look first at the revisions. So there's some big changes in between those. I will say I think these middle 3 is hard to see just exactly what's changing there. It's quite subtle, especially as I feel a little bit in a rush in a video in this particular type of context. But let's say going from this image then, obviously you ended up with a little bit green around the car in there, which looks a touch wrong to my eye. But the parts that I like about it is how beautifully blue and nebulous the rest of the galaxy regions actually ended up looking as a result of that. They could have stood a touch more green adding to them, but the regions within which it was added may have been needed to be slightly more accurately masked in this case. But I can appreciate it's very, very difficult to do. Especially if you're new to PixInsight too. And if you are new to PixInsight, by the way, sir, I think you're doing a wonderful job and you should keep going, definitely. This, for me, is a major improvement. I really like the use of colours in this thing, and I think you've set your black point pretty wonderfully for this image too. So great job on that. One thing that I do like in particular about this image is that it looks like you've really consciously thought about what you're doing with these particular regions up here when you've masked them out, because it looks to me like it's, you know, this has been a result of some masking efforts that's been applied. And I say that in the nicest possible way. I do actually like what you've achieved. Some of these brighter regions have been successfully masked, have been brought up from the rest of the image to give an overall another dimension to the shot, which I like. I think you've done a really good job with those. I think overall, once again, maybe me and you have got a little bit of a difference in our color calibration on the monitors, which is fully understandable. No 2 monitors are really going to be calibrated the same unless they're like calibrated with a machine. That's just the way it is. But I think you've done a great job here. I like that you've brought out quite a lot of these red nebulous regions. It's like stepping stones going up all the way through the nebula right there. It came up lovely. Negative points, I think overall on these 3, they are quite similar. So I'd say maybe the core in this area could have stood a touch more blue, green, maybe to draw it away from being a little bit brown in that core. But overall, it's very good effort, and I think it's maybe my favourite of the ones that you've put forth right there. This one as well could actually turn out beautifully. So I want to point out something about this one that I really like, and that's this arm of dust that connects up to this nebula right here. And the core in particular, it's a little bit bright in the core, but as a result, I mean, you've picked up so much of this nebulosity with your masking effort on this one in the red in particular. So like I said, that stepping stones effect rippling through this nebulous like regions throughout the arms of this galaxy has came up tremendously. So I do like that. Your black point's a little bit bright on this image maybe, and overall the color balance is biased a touch towards maybe green, I think, on this one. So I don't know, I think it does look like you've made a conscious effort though to bring out the nebulous regions in particular at the expense of the rest of the image on this one. So how to judge that one, I don't know, but I think they're both nice images, and maybe if you could combine your efforts on masking the red regions in this image and the blue regions in this image together, that might have been the ultimate shot for me. But as it stands, there's bits I like about this one, bits I like about this one. I think overall, you know, to say that you're still working your way through PixInsight, you're doing a cracking job, mate. And yeah, thank you very much indeed for your submission. Keep up the good work. Keep on going. So Supra X321, how's it going, bud? Post-processing for me is one of the toughest parts of bringing magic to our eyes. Very well said. It is indeed tough. And no two people are really going to process something exactly the same. At the end of the day, there is always a degree of interpretation that's going to go into these things, I reckon, anyway, unless you're going for a purely scientific-based processing method, which I think would be very hard to apply. So overall, yeah, totally agree with what you're saying there. This is a practice run with Luca Matico as part of a tutorial captured on a RedCap 51, so a very small aperture telescope that he's captured this on. A 585 MC Pro, 252 gain, Optolong L quad, so an interesting filter choice there as well. 2 hours of integration of 5-minute shots. Okay, so that's only 24 shots, unless I'm losing my marbles right there, so that's not many shots to go with. Overall, I think you've done well given what you're working with there. I don't know about your light pollution situation, but it looks like you've consciously dealt with some noise in this image. I can see that you've had some noise to deal with. So I think overall you've done a good job given how much there probably was with so little data to work with, kind of thing. So yeah, overall I like it. I like your color balance in the core. It's maybe, if you want a negative feedback point, you know, like something that I would change in the image, however you want to look at it, I think it's maybe biased ever so slightly towards reds and purples, just a tiny little bit. So with a mask applied and a very slight lift in green overall, you could probably restore that balance quite easily at that point. But again, I'm always aware that it could just be a personal choice that you've made during processing, in which case, absolutely fine. Do you know what I mean? This is just what I'm looking at from my perspective, my eyes, my tastes, my monitor. As we keep iterating, but that's probably the only thing I'd change. A little bit of saturation in there. I think, yeah, there's not much else I could give you on that one. I think, mate, I like what you've done with such a small aperture. Well done. Thank you for your submission. I look forward to seeing how you'd interpret some other data, especially on that one, given that it's really hard target to process, to be honest. Now, this is a pretty staggering image, I have to say, from Dan, my mate Dan here, with a TSCF90. That's a carbon fiber 90mm triple apo at f6, an AM5, an ASI 533 MC Pro, and an Antlia tri-band RGB Ultra 300-second subs. Well, I don't know how many subs you've gotten there, Dan, but my word, mate, you've got an interesting image on your hands right here. So the things that I really like about this one, let's say, I can see there's a few more revisions. So let's just, okay, so we're looking at crops of the thing and then the whole image in context with the rest. So the things I like, let's just dive straight into that now. You've picked up, it almost looks like some sort of scientific variant of this this image, in that there's features in regions of this galaxy that aren't coming through in the other shots, aren't coming through in my own shots, such as, you know, what's all this stuff here? This is really interesting to see. fantastic. Really like that, and I don't know how you've achieved that, where it's come from, but it's a very interesting shot overall. So very well done. I like the brightness, and I like that it's not over bright in the core. I don't think you've overdone noise reduction or sharpening. Very tasteful overall processing. A heck of a lot of detail captured in these nebulous regions. The parts that we can compare between images, you know, because I can see all this stuff, let's say in my own data. Yeah, very, very nice. I think now if I'm looking at things that I might change personally speaking, and this is just nitpicky, do you know what I mean? There's perhaps just a touch too much green, but I will immediately temper what I've just said there with the fact that this is obviously a spectacular image, and I have no clue what it's like processing RGB ultra data. I don't know what that filter's like, do you know what I mean? It could be practically like processing dual narrowband data almost. Obviously it's going to be different, but you know, there is going to be a huge difference in how you apply processing and what you can apply. But overall, stunning. Really, really pretty image there, I'd say, Dan. So well done on that. It looks like you've just filled this galaxy with different individual targets that I'd like to get a really big, powerful telescope and look at. You know what I mean? This region, this region, this region, this region, etc. It's just peppered with them. So yeah, feeling mega positive about that one, mate. Well done. Captured by Josh, 29. M33 galaxy, 2.73 million light years away from Earth. My attempt at using data for triangulum troubles. Really enjoying using PixInsight. Well, that's fantastic to hear, Josh, right away. I'm chuffed to hear that you're enjoying PixInsight, and it looks, to be honest, mate, like you're really getting to grips with it as well. The only thing that I might change about this image, I love your color balance. I like the amount of dust detail, etc. that you've captured. I think noise reduction has been applied tastefully. I think your sharpening's been applied tastefully. I like it. Maybe just the background is ever so slightly too bright. That being said, if I remember correctly, I think mine's pretty bright too. It can just be a taste thing. Do you know what I mean? How you feeling on that particular day? At least for me. Wow, we're getting that same sort of... let's read the blurb, actually. Q Astropix has put this one forth. And I also want to say, by the way, thank you for your submission there, Josh, as well. It was really nice to see someone who's getting started in PixInsight getting so far on already. Cracking job. Now, Q Astropix, M33, located about 3 million light years away from my driveway. This spiral galaxy spans nearly 60,000 light years across. Image consists of 8.5 hours of integration, using a refractor with 774mm focal length, and a color camera, and the Antlia Triband filter. So, hang on. Antlia Triband RGB Ultra. I don't know if they're the same filter or different, but this is actually very similar to Dan's image in that there's this stepping stone effect, to use that same term again. It's probably the wrong term, but just with the spacing of these interesting regions going throughout the shot, it's really interesting to know that he's captured that as well as Dan. You know what I mean? They're both focused in on that using that filter. So there it is, by the way, M33 in relation to Triangulum. A single 3-minute sub. That's interesting to see. Thank you for including that. You can see these nebulous regions popping straight up on that single 3-minute sub. So my overall feedback is I love the fact that you've got so much, you know, of this beautiful red nebulosity coming through and these other interesting features. I do think, however, that the rest of the galaxy is biased too much towards purple. So let me know what you guys think down below. But particularly in this region over here and these edges, it looks purple to my eye rather than blue or, you know, pushing towards maybe a light tealish color like you'd expect maybe a galaxy to appear. But again, this could be processing difficulties due to that filter, so maybe it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I don't know. I have no experience whatsoever processing that type of data, so I can't say for sure, but all I would say is, like I say, if this were my image and I was getting ready to hit save, I would be looking at creating a mask over this thing and trying to increase perhaps the green values very slightly, you know, to bring it back into line. But it's a nice image, and I think you've done well, and you've captured an incredible amount of detail. So well done, and thank you for taking part. Moving on now to Don Miller. Triangulum Troubles. I used your data provided for this. Hey, brilliant. I do have my own data that I've done. It's in HARGB though, and I didn't think it would be fair to send it instead of yours. Understood, mate? Yep, thank you. Note, I went a bit far on the red, but I had fun. Well, that's what it's all about, Don. Yeah, definitely, mate. As long as you had some fun with the image, then it's always a success in my eyes, especially. But so if you want some positive feedback on this, I think the amount of detail overall in the image that you've extracted from the data, again, lovely, tastefully applied as well. It doesn't look like too much, do you know what I mean? The noise reduction, whatever you've used, seems to be working well. I feel like I can almost see some gentle patterning appearing. I'm not sure what has caused that, or whether it's just a compression artifact and then having been uploaded to Instagram. Absolutely could be that. Only you will know, though, of course. I guess you having the master data of this, just as you saved it. So perhaps you could let me know if you get the chance and if you see this. But overall, very nice image. I like your use of color. I think for me, though, what I would change is it looks to be like there's been a red mask applied at some point that has been maybe over softened, which has led to almost a red glow, like an orb in the middle right here that I am picking up on my screen. Maybe it's not so obvious on someone else's screen, depending on your calibration, etc. But for me, I can see it, and I feel like that's the only thing holding this image back, really. There is this kind of red masked core that could really be pushed a little bit more towards blues and greens kind of thing. And then when I say blues and greens, by the way, in all these feedbacks, really, what I'm talking about is pushing it back towards more a neutral galaxy color, probably more predominantly blue overall. But yeah, nice image, and thank you for submitting that, Don. Now on to my friend Pat. Pat's got a wonderful YouTube channel, by the way. You should check him out. But yeah, the Triangulum Galaxy, Spiral Galaxy, is part of the Andromeda Milky Way family, and it's about 3 million light years away. It's about 8 hours in total of exposure time over the course of 3 nights. So Pat took his own data for this. Each subframe was 5 minutes. The telescope was the Celestron Edge HD 11, so Pat used the same scope as me and the reducer, just like I did as well. Only guided with an off-axis guide at a 174, and took the data through a 071 MC Pro. So that's a one-shot color, of course. I think slightly bigger pixels than the ones I used, but overall a lower quantum efficiency than the camera that I used. Now, I don't know what Pat's sky conditions are actually exactly like out there in Savannah, where he lives, but it's captured a very interesting image. And I think the thing that I really like about this, let's just finish reading what he says, by the way. I tend to shy away from oversaturating. You can certainly see the many nebulae floating around the galaxy. You certainly can. Many thanks to Luke of Lucmetico for giving us the ability to have our images analysed. Hey, it's my pleasure, Pat. It really is. By the way, again, like I say, Heavenly Backyard Astronomy, that's Pat's channel. Please do check him out. He's a really lovely chap, and I'm sure he'd welcome you if you want to check out another Astro YouTube channel. But yeah, so the thing immediately that stands out to me about this, it practically leaps off the screen actually, is this rift of dust up here. I love it. I love what you've done with that one, Pat. It looks believably three-dimensional to my eye. At least I don't know what you guys at home think, but I think it's coming up off the screen almost, and it looks like it's part of the galaxy. It looks like it's above the galaxy at the same time. Really, really impressive feature to it. I think what I might change if this was my shot, Pat, and it's difficult because, like I say, you've used a quad enhanced filter there again, so this is not something I have any experience with. So take whatever I'm saying with a healthy pinch of salt, at the very least. But yeah, I think maybe I would lower the background values of the background itself down just a touch, and maybe push the bias of the colors slightly away from green, more towards the blues, and leave probably the reds alone at that. I think it could take it. I think the data could take it. It looks nice, but he's got these wonderful features coming through again. Like I say, these separation in these nebulous segments, and how they lead one into the other is wonderful. And I think you've done a good job there, Pat. So I like it. Overall, I very much like it, and well done. Thank you for your submission there. So this is from Daryl Johansson. I'm not too hip on this Instagram thing. Me either, mate. Don't worry about it. Hopefully I tagged this correct and it shows up where intended. It does indeed. Thank you for taking part, by the way, Daryl. This was a lot of fun, but I did spend 20 minutes on it, not 15. Thanks, Luke. Well, thank you for having a go, and crikey, what a well-applied 20 minutes you've used on this, I have to say, mate. So, yeah, overall, very much like the image. I think it's so hard to choose your black point on images like this, especially when it's so zoomed in. The last thing you want to do is clip off, the faintest regions of anything, really. But I think maybe it could have stood, even as I'm saying it, I'm having an internal argument with myself. I think it could maybe stand a tiny bit more black point level applying, so, a little bit darker in the background to make this stand out just a touch more from the background. And maybe if you want one other tiny touch of feedback, this core looks balanced slightly towards maybe yellow. So I'd have a crack with masking on that, and maybe even pull down on the green very slightly in those regions, and that should give you the effect of a coherent change in colour from these bluer regions to these lighter blue regions, then going into the brighter core of the galaxy. But overall, this is just me being very nitpicky. I think it's a lovely image, and I think you've done a cracking job for 20 minutes. So well done, and thank you for your submission. Next up is Jay Nelson. This is a very dramatic image. Here's the print version of the Triangulum Galaxy. This should turn out well on paper. Also, I'm submitting this to a YouTuber's video for him to critique, I think. You are indeed, and here is said critique. Wow, it's very bright, I have to say. I love it, actually. I really like the shot. It's obviously you've changed this for printing purposes, so again, like I say, any critique I give with a very major pinch of salt for this one, but I think your black point's pretty darn well set. I know you've done this particularly dramatically for print reasons, as I say. If it was just for photographic reproduction on your screen, maybe slightly brighter in that, but you no doubt know that. And overall, the image looks biased very slightly towards purple, but it ain't much. It really ain't much. So maybe for me, I'd put a mask over the whole thing and just bring the red slider down on let's say red curves just a tiny bit. But it won't be much. It wouldn't be much. And overall, I think you've got a cracking image there. I particularly like, if I had to choose a favourite feature from this, by the way, I think it's some of the saturation application, actually. It's very nice. These stars look beautiful, and these nebulous regions going into the core. Cracking, and particularly this cluster right here as well. That's fantastic. Well done, and thank you for your submission. Next up is Steve's Stars. This is M33, the Triangulum Galaxy. This image was taken by Luca Matico and included in one of his YouTube videos explaining how to process a one-shot color image. Well, thank you for the shout out there, by the way, Steve. This was my attempt at processing using PixInsight. I prefer a less color saturated image with lots of the dust lanes shown prominently, so that's what I went for. So you've gone into this with a specific thing in mind, and I think you've achieved it, to be honest, Steve. Yeah, so if you don't particularly like an overly saturated image, then yeah, it's a conscious choice that you've made there, and I can absolutely get behind that. I think your black point is pretty darn good. I think what you aimed for, lots of dust lanes shown, you've achieved. Do you know what I mean? That they're popping out right there. If you want them to pop out even more, you might try going to scripts in your PixInsight and then using dark structure enhance. Maybe it'd work for this data, maybe it wouldn't. It's hard to say, but I think it probably could take a touch right there if you particularly like that kind of thing in your images. For me, of course, it's immaterial. At this point, he's already said that's what he goes for, but I think for me, of course, I would just probably mask the whole thing, up the saturation a touch for me until I was happy. But like I say, you've made a conscious choice and you've achieved what you went for, so hats off to you, Steve. Well done. I think you've made a nice image there, mate. Next up is 6 inches under. M33 data from 2021. Okay, processed using Luca Matico's PixInsight tutorial. Well done, mate, I have to say, straight away. I think your colour balance is very close. Very, very close. The only thing I'd change is a very slight reduction in overall green on this one. But again, this is a monitor calibration thing, almost certainly. some of this. So the feedback I offer might not always rather be that relevant, as it could look perfect on your screen. It might just be on mine that it looks very slightly off towards green, but it is slight, and I think overall you've done a cracking job. My favorite features about this one is how you've brightened these like clustered regions in the arms and made them really stand out, some of those. So if you squinted a bit, the things that really stick out are like this arm, and these two right here, giving it almost a Catherine wheel kind of appearance, which I like, rather than just being like a block of coloured disc. Yeah, overall, I like it, mate. I think you've done a good job, and I approve. Well done. I think the only thing, if I could give you one more little point on this one, I don't know if you've used any deconvolution method or something on this one. The stars appear to maybe be very slightly ringed around them, but not overly deconvolved. So I don't know what method's been applied, but maybe you could give a try with something like Blur Exterminator. That might really pull, particularly some of these smaller star profiles, and really finally resolve them and make the most of the data, because it looks like nice data overall. But again, like I said, I wasn't watching your processing, so I don't know, but I think it's overall a nice image, and thank you for your submission. Arrow Raven, I introduce the Triangulum Galaxy. This is my first galaxy to edit. Your first galaxy. So thank you, Lugminty, for the data set. Wow, well done. And the very helpful tutorial as I slowly learn my way around PixInsight. Awesome stuff, Arrow Raven. Crikey, your first galaxy and you've came up with this. Well done, I have to say. I wish my first galaxy processed like this. Yeah, lovely stuff. So if you want feedback, just keep doing what you're doing. You progressing so fast. If this is your first time processing galaxy data, the things that I would change were this my image. So before I hit save, I would be adjusting the black point using the histogram, pushing it up just ever so slightly to clip this down a bit. Sorry, clip's the wrong term. To be honest, that's a dangerous word. Just to lower the background values slightly without clipping anything. And then I would probably use a mask. It looks like you've already used a mask applied on this to bring out the nebula as beautifully as you have done. But perhaps a more discriminatory mask could have been used for these red nebulous regions, leaving some more of this this mix area between blue, green, and galactic core color, likely like a bright-ish yellow, yellowy blue kind of thing. It would have made those merge slightly more softly together, but overall I do like the image, and that's probably the thing that I would change on this one. But well done, bloody hell, well done. You know what I mean? Your first galaxy shot, that's amazing. Astro Meathead, by the way, still the favorite name on this one. So this is my friend Rob, as a vid up on processing the Triangulum Galaxy, generally providing some data with which to follow along and post our results. Awesome. Thank you for the shout out there, Rob. I think I did a little better with this than I did with the Hubble Bubble Challenge a few months back, but time and Luke will tell. Oh, fair enough, mate. So, right, immediately, the thing that I really like about Rob's image here, it looks like he's used quite a sharp mask, so not overly softened or anything like that, but it's kind of accurately applied to, in particular, these clustered regions around here. So you can see where my mouse is pointing all along this arm, all along this region here, up around this, and these clusters and extensions. And he's brightened them up somehow, which, however he's done it, you know what I mean? It looks like it could be like a curves up kind of thing. Potentially that might achieve a similar effect. However he's achieved it anyway, it's gave almost a three-dimensional appearance to this thing. And I like it. It's made the image look dynamic, and it's an appealing part of the shot. I think it looks like Rob's also used some kind of a red mask going throughout there, but that maybe could have stood a tiny bit more softening on that particular mask, because you can see rifts of red saturation running through the otherwise coloured segments of this galaxy. it's a major nitpick. So I'm sorry for even going there, Rob, but you know, this is just what I'm offering as feedback. I hope you take it in the spirit that it's intended. Just final polishing touches on an already pretty image. Background is maybe a touch bright. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing on the image that stands out to me, at least in my interpretation of it as you've put it forward here. Background could have stood with being just a bit darker overall to make this already sparkling metallic appearance that you've gone for even more dramatic. If you wanted to go for that, maybe you didn't. So I don't know. Like I say, take whatever I'm saying with a pinch of salt, as I certainly don't know it all. Far from it. Do you know what I mean? But that's what I'd change. And thank you for taking part. It's appreciated. Now, Nick Axtro Photos. Hey Luke. Hey Nick. Using your data, I followed closely your tutorial up to and past the range mask. Afterwards, I removed the stars, took it into Photoshop to tweak the colours, and used clarity and topaz denoise. Okay, still a little too red, but I don't mind if you don't. Cheers, Nick. Well, thank you, Nick. I think we'll agree to not mind then, mate. Yeah, no, I think all jokes aside, in seriousness, I think you've done a lovely job processing this. Perhaps the same sort of feedback I could give to some of the other shots, probably to my own shot too. The background is just a touch bright, and it is just a touch. It's not much really, to be honest, mate. It's again nitpicky, but for me, I probably would have changed the overall color balance of this particular region that I'm trying to mouse around right here. So some of your extensions look like they're separated well from the background, maybe biased slightly towards green. The rest of it, towards the core and the main arms of the Galaxy, maybe biased, if I could speak, very slightly towards like a reddish brown almost. So in that case, I would try to perhaps bring up those blues in particular to try and combat some of that. And if you notice it start going a bit more purple at that point, start to add a touch more green and maybe even tone down the red just a touch. Come back in with a fine red mask just on the regions that you want it. I realise this all just rolls off the tongue, like it's really super easily done, and I know it's not. But yeah, that'd be my feedback for you. I think overall, though, you made a pretty image, Nick. And I'd love to see your future submissions too. It'd be great to see how you work your way through other types of data as well. So yeah, I think my favourite thing though about it, I don't know if I've mentioned that, going from the core right there, there's a bit of a little islands in the sea effect going on of these nebulous spots running up through there, and I like that in your image. It came out really well as a result of that red. Hopefully you wouldn't lose that with that injection of blue or green that we talked about. Thank you for your submission. City Sky Astro from Saitama, I think. Oh, interesting. How dark are your skies? This galaxy is often used to decide the level of darkness of the night sky. At a truly dark site, this galaxy is visible to the naked eyes, making it the farthest object that can be seen with the naked eye, at 2.73 million light years away. That's an interesting point, yeah. I don't think I've ever been somewhere dark enough that I can see this with the naked eye. At least not with direct vision anyway, that's for sure. I probably witnessed it with averted vision. But let's take a look at its details anyway. 300 3-minute subs, 15 hours. My word, that's an effort. Well done. Bought 7 skies, so you're well up against it in terms of light pollution, just like me. So I know what you're dealing with there. ASI 533, so lovely camera, gain 100, -10, and a Zenith Star 73 Mark III, is that? Lovely little telescope, but very sorry. Having a child has meant sleepless nights. But yeah, we have to temper, of course, what we hope for from an image based on the instrument it was captured with to a degree. So I have to say, you know, given that you've used a small refractor, I think you've done a very good job with this. You've preserved a lot of details, particularly in and around the core and this main arm, as I keep referring to it as, leading up into that nebulous region. So the things I would probably change, if you want my feedback on things I'd change first, it looks like the noise reduction is maybe applied very slightly too strong. It's not much, but it just looks slightly too smoothed, maybe. But that's open to interpretation. Maybe that's the look that you wanted, in which case, 2 thumbs up. You know, you've achieved it. And maybe just a touch more saturation would be my main points. So the whole thing, The color balance itself looks good, but the overall level of color looks quite low. So I'd say maybe mask out this whole galaxy if you could, and just up your saturation on it until you're at the point where you're happy. And it looks also like with you using this nice little refractor, you've caught some interesting color on those stars. So perhaps pull your stars out and saturate those separately too. That could be done, and then reapply everything together. And I think with the data that you've captured there, you can have a lovely image. Not that it isn't already. I think you've captured a lot of detail and have done a good job. So yeah, well done, and thank you for your submission. And like I say, I think the favourite feature about this is how prominent that arm is going through there. This is popped out lovely, and I think that's the key feature for me. And I'd love to see that brought out even more with some colour. So well done, and thank you for your submission. This is mine, and you know what? As I suggested, my own brightness of the background is too much. So I'd immediately knock that down a touch. I think my colour balance is pretty good overall, but yeah, I won't dwell on my own shot too much. It's not bad. But yeah, I should take some of my own advice, I guess, like I say, and just drop down that colour background there, just that little bit, the black point rather. So now we're looking at Oleg. This is my result of processing the M33 Triangulum Galaxy. Data provided by Luke and shared on YouTube. It was a great pleasure to process this data. I would like more contests like this. Oh, well, I'm really pleased to hear that you enjoyed that, Oleg, and there will be more to come. Absolutely. It seems like people have enjoyed this, and I like doing it too. It's a bit of fun, you know what I mean? A bit of back and forth with the community, talking about what we're getting up to and what we're achieving from these tutorials and exchanges of knowledge back and forth, even in the comments and stuff like that. I learn things regularly. So the main things I like about your image, your use of color. I think your use of color is actually really nice. Oh, excuse me. On this shot, no real major complaints at all, to be honest. In the core of the galaxy itself, I think the color's really well applied. There are regions that could be argued and maybe very slightly towards purple, but they're so small. I think they actually add contrast to the image rather than take away. As it's not great regions of it, it's just, you know, segments here and there, which I think it adds to rather than takes away, like I say. The only thing I'd change really, mate, to be honest with this one, is lowering that background just ever so slightly away from the rest of the galaxy. It could probably be achieved in this particular image's case, maybe just a slight S curve on your main curves, RGBK. And that'd have the effect of even further bringing up this galaxy and lowering that background away, hopefully. But overall, a nice image and well processed. Well done. So we've got another one here, by the way, from Pat. Pat Prokop, Heavenly Backyard Astronomy. My friend there. So this is for Luke of Luke Matico of the Triangulum Troubles entries. For an analysis. Thank you there, Pat. This is from the same image I published earlier, but went stronger on the saturation, which I usually tend not to do. Okay, so this is the same data, and if we just open up Pat's profile there a second, I wonder where. Here we are. So these are the two images he put forth. So this and this. So this was the first one that we looked at, with that beautiful rift of dust going all the way through the arm. I think it's ever so slightly more muted in this one, and I do want to apologise for all the yawning, by the way, but like I say, having the baby has been very tiring, as I'm sure many of you out there can attest to. Now, there's things I like about both these images now, Pat, so you've thrown me a curveball, mate. There's bits I like about this one more than the other, and equally there's bits I like about the other more than this, so I think my main feedback, though, that I could give you, like I say, for both of these, would be just a touch lower on the black point in the background there to make this already spectacular galaxy stand out. That touch even more. It wouldn't have to be too much, you know what I mean? As I know that it'd be quite easy to take this too far, most likely. So yeah, it's difficult. I can absolutely appreciate that it's difficult on this one. And as we talked about before as well, is use the L Quad Enhance, which is going to no doubt introduce further processing challenges that I quite simply didn't have to deal with when processing my own data. So yeah, I think your ideal image there, Pat, lays somewhere in between those two for me. I'm sorry that that's not very helpful, but there's there's some beautiful features about this that I like. Like I say, I prefer these regions up here on this image and this particular as well, but I prefer that rift on your other one. So yeah, sorry I couldn't give you more accurate feedback on that one. Thank you again for your submission, by the way, mate. That's really appreciated. My gym photography, the re-edit. I've been there before, mate, of this image. First time using PixInsight to process my images. Such an upgrade compared to Photoshop. Awesome. Yeah, same sort of thing for me, mate. I didn't come from Photoshop, but I did come from like Cyril, that kind of thing, which is a great program, don't get me wrong. But man, PixInsight's better, at least in my mind. But yeah, I think overall you came up with a bloody lovely image there. My only thing would probably be it just looks that tiny bit too smooth. You know, like noise reduction's been applied very slightly too much, but it ain't much. And I think overall your color balance is very nice. The color balance is nice. It could stand a tiny bit more saturation overall for my tastes, but maybe not for yours. Maybe it might be time to add another to that. I don't know. It's depends what you liked about this image in particular. But yeah, I think overall it's good. I like your black point. I think it's pretty darn accurate looking at it on this thing. Nothing seems to be getting clipped. We're certainly not losing any of these very fine wispy edges or anything like that. So I can appreciate that's always a balancing act. Not easy to do. So well done, mate. Yeah, and you've done this with a 72mm ED as well. So that's incredibly good processing. You've got that. So well done, mate. Well done. Oh, we've got another one here from Oleg as well. Hope this object photographed by me will attract your attention and you will like it. Look, Matigo. Well, you've caught my attention. Here I am. 5.4 hours of exposition. ASCA FRA 300 Pro. This is a 60mm f5, so an even smaller aperture telescope than we've been talking about before, aside from one other person, Supra, who did it with a 51mm Red Cat. But yeah, he's a 533, guided with a mini guide scope, and all on top of an Adventurer GTI Star Adventurer, so effectively like a Star Tracker mini equatorial mount. Lovely stuff though, mate. Wow. It's a really nice image, to be honest. I think the only thing it's lacking for me is a touch more of the red nebulous regions, but I can appreciate you can't have everything, can you? You know, when you're, especially when you're shooting with quite a small telescope, relatively speaking, given, you know, the data that I provided were taken with an 11-inch scope, which is small compared to some of us, I realise, but you're never going to be able to get everything. But I think overall you've done a great job with what's been on offer right there. So I like it. I think well done. I think your black point's set quite accurately. Maybe a little bit of color saturation going on in the background. I don't know. I think you've probably done that in order to try and saturate the stars. In which case I understand. You could always pull the stars out, saturate those individually, leave the background unsaturated. That'd be an option. But overall, it's not bad at all, mate. I think you've actually done a very good job with such a small instrument. So yeah, well done, and thank you for your submission. And I think actually, looking at this, that is the last submission. So with that, I would just like to say thank you so much for your patience with me just recently. It's been hard to get anything done with the weather as it's been, and especially, as I say, and I'm not saying this to complain, I'm just being open and honest with you. Since having our son Felix, it's been all hands on deck for a while now, especially as he's reaching that kind of 8-week mark. Those of you with kids will probably know what I'm talking about. But it's been rough, but we're getting there anyway. Everything's all going well, and I want to say thank you so much for your support as well. I'm looking forward to getting more videos out, more live streams, things like that. So if you're not already subscribed, why not tick it? You know what I mean? Click that subscribe, hit the notifications bell, allow all notifications if you want to be notified of future community posts, updates, all kinds of stuff, and live streams as well when I go live. And yeah, that's about it. So thank you, really a huge thank you to everybody who submitted your images for rating. I hope you feel like I've been fair with my feedbacks that I've offered, as I always try to be. It's a very subjective thing, of course. My feedback is probably not going to match someone else's feedback. Who do you trust? yourself. Ultimately, if you're happy with the images that you're making, you don't need to hear from me or anybody else, really. But yeah, that's about it. I think it's been lovely to see people's progress on these shots, though, and I've particularly enjoyed that. And I want to say thank you again for the opportunity to do that. With that said, I've gone on at extreme length. We're nearly 50 minutes in, all in one take. Absolute magic. But now it's time for me to go be a dad for a while. And with that, I will leave you. Love you and leave you. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in a future video, hopefully very soon. And until then, look after yourselves and clear skies.